Thank you so much for that intellectual and informed speech. Now, moving to our final opposition speaker of the evening, I'm delighted to welcome Anne Jensdatter, who's a first-year history and politics student from St Edmunds and the Vice President of the Nordic Youth Council. Anne, as our closing speaker, you have the ears of the House.
The microphone is on. There we go. Ladies and gentlemen and non-binary people, started out good. I have been so excited for today's debate for weeks because Pia Kjærsgaard, a Danish politician who used to be the Speaker of our House and who's infamous for being Eurosceptic and against Islam in Denmark, she was supposed to speak today. And Pia, she means a lot to me. She's actually the reason I got engaged in politics back many years ago when I was 16. You see, she stands for everything I don't. And it is thus perhaps a bit funny that I am now on this side with Brexiteers and founder of UKIP. He fortunately found sick, but he's not here, but he was supposed to. Instead of on this side of the house with my cosmopolitan and international colleagues. So what am I doing here? Well, you see, it's exactly because I believe in a globalized world, a world of unity, and one where humanity is seen before nationality, that I oppose today's motion. Because today we are talking about whether or not we believe in the United States of Europe. So, what do we mean by that? Because I agree, that's what the motion is, and that is what we should discuss. In order to do so, I think we have to start with what the European Union is today, right? Any future must take point in what we are today. And I think we can broadly kind of categorize 5 responses to the European Union among member states today. We have the people who are against the European Union, who might even want to dissolve it, or at least leave it. I agree, it was a really bad idea for the UK to leave the European Union, but that is an opinion to have. The next is of those who kind of like the European Union, but would like a bit more of a confederation. Then there are those who are just pleasant with the status quo. Then those of us who like the European Union and want more cooperation. And then the 5th category, which is what I believe we're discussing today. Those who want a European federation, a United States of Europe. So what do we mean by that? I think we're discussing a desire for a utopia, a union without national borders, an EU where there's no intergovernmental veto, and with greater harmonization. I see a European Union where all members have the exact same experience. And I think the problem with this is kind of the paradox of multiculturalism, how we like difference, but the more we accumulate, the more we converge. So to me, it would also mean to get rid of the subsidiary principle, which could also be known as the proximity principle. And it holds that social and political issues should be dealt with at the most immediate local level that is consistent with their resolution. I think this is a great thing, so let's start by researching that. Basically, as a liberal person, I kind of really like the idea that we are allowed to have lives the way we want to live them. I believe that if you want to smoke weed, you should be allowed to do so. If you want to drink alcohol, you should be allowed to do so. If you want weird, colorful tattoos, you should be allowed to do so. If you want to marry multiple people, you should be allowed to do so. I think it's a good thing that as few people as possible who decide over my future. So the problem with this United States of Europe is that instead we would have around 440 million people who have to kind of decide on this lived experience of all of us. And I think that's problematic, because I think if like 1 million people in Belgium decide that they want to live in a socialist utopia, then they should be allowed to do so. But that wouldn't be possible if we had a United States of Europe, because we would all have to kind of live the exact same experience. Yes.
You say that as part of the United States of Europe, we all have to have a coherent set of social policies. If you look at other countries like the United States, like Canada,
Yeah.
you see differences.
And that's where I believe we should kind of think greatly, right? Like, this is the Cambridge Union. I think we should kind of take the stance to as far as we can and kind of imagine what I'm talking about instead. I think that's a more proper reading of the motion. Now, second of all, I really like democracy. And the thing is, I kind of envision how this would inspire a lot of democratic complacency. Basically, when we vote, we have to vote on knowledge, right? Well, the more there is to consider, the more difficult it becomes to be a voter that understands what's going on. I would be really impressed if there's just one person in this room who could name me the prime ministers or presidents of all the European countries right now. You probably can't. Well, then that believes if we were to live a reality where we are in this United States of Europe that's very, very alike, very few people would feel like their vote mattered. And I think that's really problematic. The lived experience of democracy matters. And when you feel like your vote doesn't change anything, because there are 440 million people that you live the same experience as, then you stop voting. And I think that's toxic to democracy. That's the way that democracies slip away, and we get these kind of authoritarian states instead. Third of all, I like democratic experimentation. I don't think that's something we've talked about tonight, right? But the more we look alike, the less differences there will be. But I think it's a great thing that Finland has an education system that's unlike my education system, because they're doing it better than we are in Denmark. And then we can learn from them. We can learn from the Netherlands on their farming policies, from Germany on cooperative banking, and perhaps from the French of kind of protest culture and the way they kind of look at democracy, right? I think that's a really good thing. And if we all kind of harmonize and look more alike, that wouldn't be possible. I think democratic experimentation is incredibly important. Yes.
I feel like kind of taking the stance of a country that, from my personal view, is like a good one to live in. And from a Polish perspective, we felt in the past 8 years that the EU has sometimes served for us as protection from our own government. And in that sense, we don't necessarily all want to be living our own democratic experiment in those past 8 years.
Fair enough, but that actually comes to my last argument, and I don't have much time left, which is kind of this idea of Nordic exceptionalism, right? I don't want to join with a union with Poland or Hungary or a lot of the other countries in the European Union. Like, simply, I really like where I'm living. No, thank you, there's less than a minute left. And I kind of envision a Nordic union instead. And I think we need a Nordic union, because we are, together would be the 11th biggest economy. And the 11th biggest economy has a lot of sway. The thing is that we really have to remember is that progress is possible, but so is stagnation and recession. We've heard, no thank you, we've heard on side proposition today about these beautiful beliefs about what the European Union could do in the future. And I agree with that. However, the opposite is also possible. Look to our neighbors in the West, America, where they're now rolling back rights for abortion, and they might want to ban IUDs in Oklahoma. Look to the UK, where the standard of living for the median person has fallen the last 15 years. Just because we get this nation and we get change doesn't necessarily mean that it will be good. Thus, I implore you, whether or not you are nationalist or internationalist, if you are conservative or progressive, if you love the EU or you don't, that you ought to vote with side nay today. Because it is the duty of the idealistic dreamer, for those of us who want a better future, to also be pragmatic. And the risk of recession, of not exploring new ideas, of killing a sense of democracy in different nations, is not worth the United States of Europe. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that bold and innovative speech to finish off our debate for this evening. I'd like to thank in particular Meg and Alex for convening the debate tonight, and for all our paper speakers. Could we please give them one last round of applause? If you go through the middle, that's abstention, but you can vote through with your feet, with the eyes there and the no door there. I'll see you all in the bar for the results. Thank you.